Hello, I'm Tamara Larice, and the time has come for me to begin sharing my journey with the world. At this point, I feel very called by Spirit to share messages from my higher self. Our higher self truly is the only avenue for healing, for setting us on our path and knowing with a surety and confidence that what we're doing is divinely aligned to what is needed here on the planet, to what is needed collectively, what is needed for our soul growth, and one of my favorite avenues has been in Dreamtime. So it's been a wild journey the last year and a half. I'd like to just start with saying that I was a mess. I would not allow myself to feel anything. I would bury myself completely in work. All of my self-worth came from how much money I was making and what I was in sales. So all of my self-worth came from what my numbers looked like, um, monthly, quarterly, annually. And I had been through, of course, some very serious events and some serious trauma, as all of us have in this life, right? We've experienced some really bumpy roads, and what I learned is that I was closing myself off, and it was literally shutting me down. So I had gotten to the point where I was engaging in substance abuse daily. I had at one point gone to see a spiritual guide, a spiritual leader, and she would work with me biweekly. And she would be initially, I went to her because I could feel that there was so much more to me than I was giving myself, than I was allowing myself to be. And she was guiding me, but there was, the substance abuse that had to be addressed, and I wouldn't, I couldn't do it. And to the point where she eventually was able to see that I was looking at stopping my own heart. And she cautioned me about this. And although I took it seriously to an extent, I didn't take it seriously enough to do anything about it. So months went by. A year and a half went by, close to 2 years went by, and at that point, I was starting to see death looking back at me when I was looking in the mirror in the morning. I could see that I was shutting down. I could see that I was destroying all of the relationships in my life. I was in a relationship with this man that we had reconnected after, from knowing each other in high school. And we had, with the every intention of building a beautiful life together, and I was not able to weigh in emotionally like I thought or in a way that was effective and important. The same thing with my children, with the rest of my family, my extended family. My relationships were superficial. My relationships were completely surface, and I gave exactly what I deemed appropriate in the moment. And meanwhile, internally, I'm really just kind of spiraling out of control. I was in this relationship with this man who's completely sober, and yet I was using substances, alcohol and others, to reward myself. And he tried to be so loving and patient and kind, and that was very difficult for him. And even though I'm watching myself destroy these relationships around me, I couldn't stop. And so I got to this point where I knew something had to change. It was going to be very short-lived. I had the ability and every right to continue down the path that I was on. But it was going to be very short-lived at that point. And of course, I'm thinking, I still have one child at home. I have a grandchild, and I have this loving man who has sacrificed so much in his life to make our relationship possible. And I had to make a choice. The choice was continue on, or the path that I was on, and live a short, bumpy ride, or I had to choose to live. And I decided life. I decided I was going to live, and I decided that I was going to live life to the fullest extent. I was going to truly live. I wanted adventures. I wanted fun. I wanted to soak up the feeling of nature. I wanted to soak up the feeling of an enriched life and be authentic. To truly be authentic, which meant I had to be really honest with myself in every aspect. Looking at yourself is not always, very often, not easy to do. But if we aren't, what I've come to understand is that if we aren't honest with how we feel in every moment, then we absolutely are not living an authentic life, and we're not living with integrity of ourselves, to ourselves. And spirit will try to come through. Spirit does try to come through and guide, but if you're not listening to your guidance system, which is our emotional body, we're not going to feel spirit on the level that spirit speaks. I mean, it's very soft, very gentle. So I'd like to just share this dream that I had, and I call this my awakening dream. And this is absolutely one of many then to follow, higher self message dreams. So I had made the decision. I was in a very dark place internally, and I had essentially shut everyone out. And so I went to sleep, and I had taken the advice of my spiritual guide, advisor, I guess is what she was. So she's a wonderful woman. And I had saged. So before I went to bed, I saged all around my entire body. And I went to sleep with the intention of doing something different in my life. And while I slept, I dreamt that I was laying on the ground, on the earth. And I was in a nightgown, and I could feel the soil under me. And I was sleeping with my hands here. And it was very dark. It was night. It was dark all around me. And I could see, above my head going this direction, I was seeing all of these different, there were different moments or events in my life, and they were all very separated. A section here and a section behind it, and another section, going on and on to earliest memories in my life. And each one was separated by a brick wall. And I realized that each one of those, there was an event that took place that was traumatic and difficult for me to handle. I didn't have any coping mechanisms to be able to handle these events, because they were going back to again, when I was a young child, and a dysfunctional family. And what I had decided, and I distinctly remember this growing up, that as each of these events would take place, I would say to myself, that wasn't me, that was somebody else, and that didn't happen. I'm a different person, and a wall would go up. So in this dream, what I was seeing was those exactly that wall that went up when I made those decisions. And I must have been making that decision unconsciously, I guess, or unaware of as I grew up, for a very long time. Because in the dream, it was happening, when I was pretty young. So something would take place, and there was a brick wall, and then I was different, it was somebody else, and then something would happen, and a brick wall. Well, in this dream, all of a sudden, these walls start coming down. The walls start breaking down, and each one of the aspects of me or the different stages of my life, of me, would actually started becoming one and really ended up coming into this version of me that's now sleeping on the ground. And here to my right, I see that there is this skeleton, almost demonic like, or evil being, evil if you want to say that, but a dark being, skeleton face, and he was coming out of where his body was a dead tree stump. And he was wearing a crown. It was like he was the king of darkness, right? In this dream. And he had this staff, and he was kind of like holding me down. But not only was he holding me down, he was laughing. But there were all of these little almost like worm-like creatures that were coming in, and they were coming in, and I could see where all of this fear from all of these moments of my life and me laying on the ground was completely fear-based. I was living in fear. And these little creatures were coming from the skeleton man, and they were coming into me, and they were feeding off of this fear. Well, not only were they feeding off of the fear, but they were creating more fear. It was like it was this cycle that was happening inside of me, where the more they ate, the more they created, so they could feed more, and more would come in. And I'm kind of like waking up in this dream a little bit, coming to a little bit of consciousness. And I see that although he's holding a staff, and it appears that he's holding me down, he didn't actually have any ability to hold me down. This was all by my choice, or my willingness to unconsciously stay asleep and ignorant to what was taking place, to really taking place in my life, that living off of fear, running off of fear. And more fear would just be created from these fearful thoughts and these fearful ideas of myself and the world around me. So I kind of wake up to this, and I said, oh my goodness, like you don't have any power over me. And he's laughing, and he's acting as if he does. And I said, no, not anymore. I'm not okay with this at all. And I'm actually far more powerful than you are, because I'm light. Now, mind you, people would try to tell me, awakened people would, and my spiritual advisor especially, would try to tell me that I was light, that I literally am light. And I didn't have any concept of that. I had no idea what that meant. How can I be light? Look at me. I'm a dense person, like, right? You can't see through me. How am I light? That doesn't make any sense. I was not able to cognize that in any way. So anyway, in this dream, though, I said, I am light. You don't have any power over me. And I look up into the sky, and I can see parting through the dark sky and through the dark clouds, there's this little beam of light, and I decided to start reaching for it. And I said, nope, I'm the light. And it was very clear in that dream that I was no longer participating in these fearful, fear-based events. I was going to the light, and I was consciously reaching for the light. And then I woke up, it was the next morning, but I woke up with a clear memory of this dream, and the feeling of knowing that it was 100% my choice to stay in a fear-based reality, but it was feeding off of itself, and that it really was feeding a dark energy out there. I mean, there was no doubt about that there's feeding a dark energy. I think that at that point I started really understanding, or began to decide to try to understand, that there are dark energies and there are light energies. But as we choose light and understand how powerful we are, the darkness has no power over us. There is no reason to live in a place where we feel like we need to protect ourselves from this dark energy. We need to. It's not a matter of protection. It's a matter of, in each moment, choosing light, choosing to know that I'm light, and to let the light in. So after that, I just began watching documentaries. I began watching YouTube videos. I began reading material, anything that felt like it was feeding my soul. And at this point, or at one point, I started realizing how much our emotional body affects our physical body and our physical reality. It started becoming apparent to me through teachers, that our emotional body is our guidance system, and that as we listen to our emotions, they're telling us everything that we need to know about a situation. It's not just, oh, this gut, it's guiding you to, trigger points that are ready to heal and be released. It's guiding you to knowing yourself in a way that, I mean, do you really know? I didn't. Do you really know what brings you joy? What brings you happiness? What makes life feel delicious to you? I mean, every moment delicious. Until you're ready to be honest, till we are each choose to be honest in every moment of our life, we have no idea what really brings us joy. We are feeding ourselves from an external source that has no way of fulfilling us. You will never be satisfied. We will never be satisfied fulfilling ourselves from an external source. All of our wholeness and authentic joy, and living a life of integrity, and living a life that brings us into total fruition of our potential, comes from being 100% honest with how I feel in every moment. Every moment. Now, I get that it can be very difficult to be honest. When they talk about raising your vibration, they talk about consciousness. Our spiritual teachers, they talk about raising our consciousness and moving to another dimension, right? And really that means bringing more light in. That really, means that we're no longer accepting the perception that we have bought into, because our perception is strictly based on, what we're holding inside. So if I'm viewing an external experience, and I'm watching this, or I'm involved in this experience, everything that's going on is not only being created by, but it's also being filtered through everything that I'm still holding on to, right? So it's like, it's just going in and it's just bumping around, and it's creating what I think is reality. But there's so many ways, I mean, an infinite amount of ways that we can actually view the same circumstance. And as we remove those blocks, as we heal those wounds, our filter changes. And then also what we create, into the outside world around us, what we live, changes, right? So then we're manifesting a reality that of our choosing, rather than by default, like as if we're a leaf in the wind, blowing around, just, bumping around in life, just reacting to what's taking place, and taking no personal responsibility for, our interactions. And, there's this teacher that I listen to. She's absolutely wonderful. Her name is Lori Ladd. If you have not watched her videos, I strongly recommend her. She talks about a way, or she teaches a way to release emotions in a way that we're taking the story out of it. So, and emotions are energy, right? And the emotions are intelligent. The energy is intelligent. It knows how to move through us. And in every moment when we're coming up against something that we feel is difficult or tough, we can allow that to move through us. And we also then, we learn to allow all experiences to move through us. It's just expanding our awareness. It's expanding us. It's expanding our soul growth. So we came in to experience these things. We came in to create new, and if we can take person, place, event out of how we're feeling in this way, we're not holding on to it and creating these blocks that distort our perception and keep us in a lower vibration and keep us in a lower consciousness and keep us in a lower dimension. So as we just allow everything to flow through us and being completely present with our emotions, they know how to move, and we can actually ask our higher self to help assist with the moving of these tougher emotions. We can also ask for our higher self to provide us with a new perception, with viewing this from a higher vantage point. Because as you take an aerial shot of the ground above, you're going to see a much greater view of what's going on. And so what we actually want to do is raise our vibration, which means we're raising our vantage point of how we're looking at things. And we can then become an observer. But it takes these cues from our higher self. Now, I, at this point, am a spiritual coach, and I do offer intuitive sessions where I can speak directly to your higher self and start giving you that feedback to help you with the relationship, to merge and to integrate and to fully be able to start using that guidance yourself. Because I don't think that we need to lean on anybody. Our higher self is the master within us, and it always has the answers. It always knows exactly what you need for your highest good, for your healing. I couple those intuitive sessions with emotion code or emotional block releases. So we literally go in and identify all of these trapped and blocked emotions, and we release them. So it's pretty incredible and pretty profound. I know for me personally, when I was doing the practice work and initially with the emotional block removal, the emotional release, trapped emotion release, I kept coming up against unworthiness. I would do these release sessions, and I would come up against unworthiness. And it's true. If I look back at my life, there's been this theme of not feeling worthy, not feeling adequate for any situation, for anybody to love me, for me to be able to bring my highest potential and my highest self to the table. Because I didn't feel like anybody even wanted that from me. Nobody even who am I to bring anything to the table? I mean, thanks for sharing your space with me. It's an honor for me to be able to be here with you, that you guys have graciously allowed me to participate in life around you. I didn't feel like I was bringing anything of value. So I kept coming up against unworthiness, and I would release it, and I would feel a release. I would feel better. But then I learned about generational or inherited, is what it's called, inherited emotions. And so these emotions are something that happened to an ancestor that were so profound that they literally traveled through DNA and now are trapped inside my body. So then I was able to go back and look and say, oh, my grandmother had this unworthiness. And so now I did a release with that part of it coming from the root there. And I'll tell you, unworthiness has never come up again. As we release these emotions, we identify and we release these emotions, they're gone. It's gone. It's gone. And now what we're left with was the ability to do today's work, to be present with me today, to be present with now, to literally be mindful in the moment and cherish every moment. The ups, the downs, the sideways, the stuff that you didn't expect, the stuff that's crazy. you start learning or feeling like, oh my gosh, what a gift, what a treasure, what a joy. You know, you are able to then thank the people in your life that trigger, you know, wounds that are ready to heal. So if you're looking for some assistance, definitely reach out. We can do a session. And I do these by proxy, so you can be in the comfort of your own home. I also offer some Reiki to help, you know, balance all 4 levels of your being, which is your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So we can start balancing all of that, and really get present with the now for our accelerated growth. And yeah, life is good. Life is good. Life is happy. Yeah, tough stuff happens. I mean, crying out loud, this eclipse season, this last one, this is just past, I mean, today is the 20th of July, 2019. So this last eclipse season was intense, brought up some serious things that needed to be cleared. And I allowed myself to honor those emotions and walk through graciously and kindly without blaming somebody else, instead thanking them. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that that's really what we came here for, is to experience the roller coaster in a way that's full of gratitude. So anyway, I plan to share more of these higher self dreams, these higher self experiences. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I hope all is well with all of you. If you need some, you know, a hand to hold while you walk through this stuff, I'm here for you. I love you. And until next time, take care.